He said the Age of Heroes would never come again.
Oh, well, it has to.
Hey everybody, it's Hannah Saulic, the head of video here at CinemaBlend, with Sean O'Connell, our managing editor and author of the Release the Snyder Cut book, and we're here to break down part 2 of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Full spoiler discussion.
The Age of Heroes brings us to our first major change from theatrical cut of 2017 to Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is we actually get to see Darkseid in action and prove what a threat he is.
He's real, yeah. So let's start by talking about the first scene that we see in chapter 2, which is Steppenwolf arriving in what, I don't think they say it's Chernobyl, do they? But it's
not Chernobyl, they say it's near Moscow.
The equivalent.
Yeah, I guess so. And he says something along the lines of like,
it's toxic. That's good.
This is a first example too of something that I think is really important to Snyder Cut, but I do kind of understand why you'd cut it if you were mandated to cut 4 hours down to 2 hours, which is the amount of time that Snyder Cut allows Steppenwolf to connect back to Apocalypse and develop his backstory. And, you know,
see, I think we need that though.
We definitely need it, right? But let's just for a minute, if I'm giving you a 4 hour cut and I'm telling you to cut it in half, aren't you going to sacrifice that before you sacrifice stuff with the Justice League?
Maybe.
Maybe? All right.
Maybe, but I think what I would do is like just try to trim everything a little bit and then like get back to it. But yeah, I mean, I guess I guess I kind of see what you're saying, because in this first scene we do get Steppenwolf. I think he says,
"You will be pleased."
And then the next time we catch up with Steppenwolf in the Stronghold, he actually talks to Desaad and like we get who he is and stuff. So I guess if you really wanted to, you could cut out this first tease at what will come, I suppose.
But it's important too, because I like how he is ordering the parademons around and saying,
"Follow the scent of the mother boxes. Find the missing two."
Like, that's pretty integral, because...
And not the scent of fear.
Yes, exactly.
The literal scent of the mother boxes, which makes so much more sense.
This cannot be.
You recognize that smell?
Fear.
They smell fear. It's so bad. It's so
terrible.
Bad. One of the elements that I think is funny about this as it develops is that the League can't figure out where he is established. Like, the League should be able to notice that this guy's building this thing in Moscow. Bruce has 6 satellites, for God's sakes. He confirms this. We should be able to figure out where he is.
Alfred would for sure know. Yeah, you're right.
But that's okay. We'll get to that in a little bit.
No! Leave me!
All right, so let's talk about the Bruce and Alfred on the plane scene.
Oh, there's a line of dialogue that I love in this too that's not included in theatrical, but it ties it stronger to BVS, which is,
"Well, it's been some time since Luther's warning. No attacks."
And Bruce has that great line that it says like,
"Maybe these barbarians don't use a gate. Maybe they're already here."
Tremendous throwback to that BVS scene, which makes the scene at the end of BVS more relevant, you know, and how significant it is.
Oh my God, it's a cohesive story? What?
Yes!
All right, so let's talk about Silas leaving S.T.A.R Labs. Something that stood out to me that I really liked a lot is, and again, sorry to compare it to theatrical cut, but in theatrical cut, that janitor says,
"I'm very sorry about what happened."
In this, I think those two actors, they like share a look that says all of that without saying anything. And I just thought it was a great example of, hey, show, don't tell. That works a lot better.
Yeah,
So I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, S.T.A.R Labs is a really interesting place that we hadn't yet explored that felt shortchanged a lot by what we got in 2017. Like, it's an important location. So I loved being able to explore more of what Silas was doing there. And the weight of him feeling like, I got to make progress as a scientist, and him knowing that, like, I also made this mistake by bringing my son back to life in a way that he's not happy with. And all of that weight and the guilt sort of resonates even stronger because we get to spend more time with those characters.
Let's move on to Amazon sending the arrow to Wonder Woman. I really liked that there was just more weight given to how important that is to send that arrow. Like, I love that they took time to kind of show like the box that it was in, and it was very much like a ceremony of sorts. I loved just the shots of the arrow flying through, and then when it like finally hits the Shrine of the Amazons, I think is what they call it. Like, I just thought that was so cool.
Absolutely. And for Diana, she's not yet convinced 100% as to what these threats Bruce is talking about potentially could be, right? So a message back from her homeland of, we failed, you know, someone attacked us and we failed. That's what that message is telling her. And then she goes down to see the dark side, you know, Diana and dark side scene is the first time that she's getting a true indication of how bad this is. I know I jumped ahead a little bit, but like, that's important.
Oh, one thing we didn't talk about that I forgot to bring up in part 1 is, what do you think about just like the Amazons theme in Zack Snyder's Justice League? Like that really like tribal sort of theme that comes up. Like it or hate it? Your face is interesting.
It's overused. It's overused. Every time Diana shows up in this movie, you hear and so on the 9th or 10th time, I thought like, all right, just stop. So I think it's fine. I would feel the exact same way if it was the Zimmer track, you know? I think the Zimmer track is fantastic, and you use it sporadically, it's more effective. If they used the Zimmer track as much as they used that Amazon catcall, I would feel it was overused also. So yeah, really.
I did think it worked really well in this specific scene.
Which one?
But yeah, I do agree.
Which one?
The sending the arrow.
Oh, okay.
It worked really well.
Okay.
But yeah, when they first show Wonder Woman in part 1, when she's like on that
statue that she's standing on,
bridge, whatever, right. I don't know. I was like, oh, interesting choice.
Yeah, and they use it a lot. I'll go back through next time I rewatch and count, but it's more than 7 or 8 times.
I found one. I found 2.
All right, so let's talk about then the next scene is back at S.T.A.R Labs with Ryan Choi.
Hey, Doc.
Who was cut from theatrical cut.
Completely, yes. A significant character eventually, you know, should he get developed, and, you know, sort of gets left at the end of the movie with a tease.
Director of nanotechnology. That's your thing.
That's my thing.
He becomes the Atom, you know, it's a origin story for a character that doesn't yet get to play out.
How do you feel about, we hear the Man of Steel theme again in this
when they talked about the
for
Kryptonian
the
ship?
First time? Yeah.
Loved it.
The Superman ship.
Did you get chills?
I did, yes. Great subtle callback to the use of music throughout the course of this franchise. Music is such an interesting conversation over the course of Justice League, because there are absolute moments when they use it and it's perfect, and there are definite moments where they use it and I was just like, okay.
Yeah, but I thought this was perfect.
Yeah, I loved it.
I loved it. I was like, oh my God.
I know.
So nice to hear it again.
Terrific example of something that's just so simple. They really give you chills.
Did you, sorry, going back to Ryan Choi, did you get the sense that there was a little bit of conflict between him and Silas?
Oh, that wasn't stolen. Was it, Dr. Stone?
I was like, what's going on there?
It is an awkward scene.
What happened?
Silas's excuse for, he was like, I don't know what that was. And the cop was like,
you don't know?
I don't know, which is why I was studying it.
And the
it's
cop,
very defensive.
Yeah, and the cop should then say, okay, but cool, but where is it? You know, like, yes, yes, you're studying it, so show it to me right now. And he
which makes sense that, like, yeah, Silas probably wasn't supposed to use that to make Victor cyborg. But yeah, I was like, I want to know what kind of drama happened between Ryan and Silas.
He stashed it in his closet. Yeah, I think Ryan Choi knows a little bit of what's going on.
Sure.
I wanted to see more of that.
What was it?
I don't know.
All right, so then we finally get to Victor and Silas in the apartment. I mean, I think it did really establish, obviously, Victor and Silas's issues, but I don't know that it was super effective for me.
Not yet. It's a challenge to rewatch this and not remember, you know, that this is the first time that we're almost seeing this character, right? In full. Because we know everything that comes after the fact. And so we got to sort of judge that, like, if Zack was teasing this through, this is our first look at Cyborg as a complete character. And we're going to sort of warm up to where he's been at that point. So
I wonder if it would have worked better, because then I think it's in chapter 3 when Silas like gives Victor the recorder.
Yes.
He doesn't do that in this.
That comes
and I'm
later.
like, wish that was all at once.
Oh, okay.
You know?
I see what you're saying.
I guess trying to think, like, I wish like he would have given him the recorder in this section.
Mm-hmm.
But again, to your point, you know, I'm coming at this from all this baggage of, you know, having seen theatrical cut a million times and knowing what's coming, that maybe that's why it felt a little bit unnecessary.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see that.
So
yeah, I see what you're saying. Either you include it all together in one shot, or you don't use this one snippet.
I just thought it was like a weird first time to see like Victor talk, but
because I think his line
maybe if
is,
you're coming in blind, it wouldn't be.
You know a lot about monsters, don't you?
Yeah, I understand that. Like, it's weird to tease that out if you're not going to go right into it. I think we're overthinking this a little bit. You know, maybe we're overanalyzing it.
100% are. Yeah.
That's the point of these videos. That's why you guys are watching it.
Yeah, I guess it does do a good job of tonally setting up like where Cyborg is mentally.
Yes.
Right now.
I think so.
I just wish we got more of it right away.
That makes sense. I can see that.
All right, so then we get to Diana retrieving the arrow, which I know this is a movie about superheroes, but for some reason, for like 2 minutes, I was like, why did they just like let her walk up into that shrine?
100% agree with you on this.
Like, it took me out of it until when she started to make the torch, and then I was like, fine, I'll let it go, whatever. But I was just like, to my knowledge, you're not allowed to do that.
In this world, a flaming arrow just arrived from somewhere.
Yeah.
And it made the news.
And didn't stop burning.
Which would, in our media-saturated world, would be a 7-day lead the news event.
I think there's like 2 cops off to the side who like don't seem to acknowledge her.
I totally laughed at thinking like, she should not be able to just walk up and take the arrow. Like, that thing would be scrutinized, you know?
Or they'd be like, ma'am, you can't walk in this ancient, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe she had some pass, you know, because she works at the museum and is in restoration and all that.
No. You're being too kind. That is a moment that when I watched it took me out of it so briefly, and I thought, she should not be able to get that.
Which I always find it so weird when I have those thoughts, especially in like when we're talking about, you know, superhero films or like fantasy films where it's like, you're supposed to accept all of this stuff. But I'm like, yeah, but you can't do weird stuff like that. Yeah. Like, it just is like,
There are elements that sometimes go too far. And when you watch them, that's definitely one of them. Also want to point, I want to point out this scene. I'm going to label this scene as the first scene that hit me on a multiple rewatch that I think is good and needs to be in there, but it is the first scene that I'll just skip on a rewatch. Like, I don't need to.
Oh, really?
It's long. It's long to have her go down and light the torch and see the cave drawings. You know, it's necessary. It's 100% necessary. But I don't need to. I won't need to sit through it every single time. I'd rather skip forward and get to whatever the next scene is going to be.
I liked it though, because I think for me, a huge part of what was missing was just context of like, how does Diana know all this stuff? And like, because in theatrical cut, it's like, you get the arrow, she sees it on the news, and then she shows up at Bruce's, and you're like, okay, if Diana knew this was such a big threat all this time, why wasn't she there from the beginning? So I like that it kind of took you a moment to show like, oh, hey, this is how Diana comes to learn and understand what exactly is coming, and it gives weight to that.
Fire has not burned for 5,000 years. Men won't know what it means.
Men won't. She will.
The next scene is Aquaman rescuing that guy from the storm, and then we can, I guess, continue to talk through his entrance back into the sea. Something that stood out to me about this was the line when he like throws the guy down in the tavern and he's like,
tell him to respect the storm next time.
And I thought it's stuff like that that makes Aquaman way less just like stereotypical bro-y like he was in the theatrical cut. So I really appreciated that line.
I did too. I think everything about that scene is really exciting. That is a edge of your seat type when the ship is going down and the guy is sort of working his way to the edge of the thing. Even though you know he's going to get rescued, it's cut in a way that's really fantastic, you know, like you think he's not going to make it. And Arthur showing up in the heart of that storm and delivering the guy back is really fantastic. But here's where we're going to get to the first song choice, where in the DC Fandom trailer, paired with Hallelujah, Arthur coming out of the cabin or the tavern and walking out to the edge of the pier and taking his shirt off and getting engulfed in the water looks badass. whatever song they chose for this is not, it's not good.
It's called There Is a Kingdom.
Okay, yeah. And the lyrics match, you know, it's a king and his kingdom, and it's too on the nose. It didn't, for me, it didn't match the action.
So I kind of went through like in the course of this scene playing out, I went through like a lot of emotions. One being like, wait, where's that White Stripes song? Because that was awesome, and I did really like that song from Theatrical Cut.
Yes,
and
that's
it was
a
cool.
great one.
It's just, it makes you think like Aquaman's fucking cool. But then I like started to listen to the lyrics, and I was like thinking about the Respect the Storm line, and I was like, okay, if I hadn't seen Aquaman's solo movie, if I knew nothing about Aquaman, this kind of sets up literally who Aquaman is through a song, which I get it. Don't know if I love it or hate it. And then I was like, oh my God, I hate this. I hate this. It's way too long. It made like the pacing, like, because again, it's a lot of slow-mo stuff, but I was just like, oh, this just completely ruins it. But then by the time it cuts to him and he's like underwater swimming, I was like, oh, maybe did I like that? So I still don't know how I feel about it, but I think it'll be
I would rather they cut right to him underwater swimming.
Really?
Because I think that the underwater technology is really perfect. I think it's better than what James Wan did over the course of Aquaman. Yeah. They chose different approaches to the underwater technology, and in James Wan's version, well, there's two things that are, like, I don't like them having to create the air bubbles for them to talk. I think them just talking in the Aquaman movie is more effective.
Wait, you can talk underwater?
But when he's swimming through the water, I thought that they did a tremendous job of figuring out how to make it look accurate. And you got to remember, we're back in 2016, 2017 where they're doing this, and Aquaman was a borderline, he's too cheesy of a character, people aren't going to embrace him. You know, like, it's weird because we've had years of Momoa as Aquaman now, so we're comfortable with it. But this was going to have to be the first time that we were seeing this, and I think audiences would have been really impressed with the work that they did to make him look as this underwater character. And so now, because we go to the sequence where he's swimming underwater and swimming up to the statue and interacting, that I would rather skip the song that you did, because without the White Stripes song, it doesn't work quite as well. It shows how much visuals and music are reliant on each other to get their tone across. So we're nitpicking, but that's the point of this video.
Okay, so let's talk about Vulko, because he was cut out of Theatrical Cut.
What do you want, Vulko?
I loved in the Vulko scene, and even in the Mara scene that comes up later, that I think Arthur has a legitimate, chip on his shoulder grudge against the Atlanteans. And I think all of the lines that come out whenever he's like,
our people suffer.
Your people.
He has no obligation. He does not feel obligated to join the fight. And so when he does finally come around to join the League, it's more significant. You know, it's more of an emotional investment because of scenes like this that are really important.
Yes, I don't know how you cut the scene. Like, it makes no sense.
First off, you have Willem Dafoe giving you a great performance.
Exactly.
And you're just like, we don't need that.
He lies.
Let's add a Russian family.
But I can't emphasize. Yeah, right, exactly. I can't emphasize how blown away I am, but how good the underwater technology looks. Yeah. I just think they did. I think they really knocked that out of the park.
Now we get our second Steppenwolf at the Stronghold scene where he talks to
Desaad. Desaad.
What are your thoughts on the way that they revealed Steppenwolf's motivations?
Let me make a plea to him that I may come home. He will hear your plea when you pay your debt.
I was like, do I feel bad for Steppenwolf right now? Like, there's a moment where they zoom in on his eyes and he kind of looks like a little puppy, and I'm like, oh.
No.
Yeah.
He wants to go home.
Like, you owe us 50,000 more worlds.
And he like almost looks like he's gonna cry, and I'm like, oh, Step, it's okay, buddy.
In times of crisis, for dog work, I always bring a meat snack.
Yeah. No, but that's great. Like, you want a villain who you almost do feel a little bit, you don't feel for them, but you understand the position that they're being put in.
But it like grounds them a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, if he's just a one-note, force to be reckoned with, it's not nearly as exciting.
Yes. Mighty Steppenwolf.
But one of the big challenges to this, though, is that you're asking a performance from a CGI character, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that really comes through. But there are some elements, and maybe it's because the scene goes on a little bit long, but there's times when Steppenwolf is delivering a sort of tragic line when I'm kind of just like, Amy, you're Steppenwolf. Like, yeah.
Well, that's probably how you're supposed to feel to an extent, too.
I guess so, yeah. But if it's an actor who I can, you know, see their eyes, you know, and connect through their vocal performance, with Steppe, you don't quite get that, so.
We never talked about Steppenwolf's new voice.
I call to thee.
Do you like it?
It's amazing.
Thoughts?
Oh, well, yes, everything about it. I mean, like Steppenwolf is one of the worst parts of theatrical.
You will love me.
No.
He is so much better in this. It's not even, they're not even on the same page.
No.
For Darkseid.
All right, now we finally get to the history lesson. What did it live up to your expectations?
Yes. The history lesson is fantastic. I think it's cool that we were having the debate about where it's going to land in Snyder Cut, and how they were going to get into it. It's not the walk along the lakeside, you know, that Bruce and Diana have. But it's not dissimilar. It is Diana sort of showing up and saying to Bruce that, like,
They came here once before, long ago.
It is, if we're going to critique it, it's exposition 101. Like, it is, all right, sit down now. I'm going to give you a chunk of backstory, and poor Gal Gadot has to narrate a lot of it.
Her VO performance on that took me out of it on the second time I was watching, because the first time I was watching it, you know, obviously you're looking at all this like awesome action that's happening, and that was all great. Yes. But then on the second time, it's like you hear her voice more, and you're like, what?
Yes, she's asked to deliver a lot of exposition.
But I would argue that other actors could have handled that better. But I digress.
Maybe. And there's a scene, and you're going to have to cut to it, please.
Wait. Mother boxes?
But to be fair, do you remember how many articles were written about what are mother boxes after theatrical cut?
Sure. Yes, of course. All of this to say that these are minor quibbles.
Oh my God, yeah.
To the fact that the history lesson is
awesome.
Incredibly
I love that we got
awesome.
more Robin Wright. Because I think in theatrical cut, we only get her like jumping off a horse, but you get like that shot when she appeared. I was like, oh,
incredible. Yes. All of the armies featured are incredible. They all get a moment to shine.
And the Green Lantern.
I think it's Kilowog, but I might be wrong. If you're listening to this and you're...
I'm sure people are already furiously typing on their keyboards.
Well, I might be right. Maybe I'm right. But Zeus is amazing. And...
Ares. I was like, hell yeah, Ares.
Yes, fantastic.
I was like, why am I rooting for Ares?
Cool moment, too, when the ring comes off the Lantern's hand and Darkseid almost gets it.
Yeah.
Oh, just the fact alone that it's
when
Darkseid.
They chopped off his hand and the blood splattered, I was like, that was so cool.
Yeah. Oh, wait a second. And then, like, the way that they defeat Darkseid.
And they have to, like, carry him away. Oh, my God.
They gotta retreat, and even just, like, as the ships are going away, and one of the Amazons shoots the... Wait, no, it's one of the old gods, I think. But it delivers a death strike to the ship. It's incredible. Like, when
I love
Zack
that it was
made
rated R
comparisons-
too, because we got to actually see like the follow through of some of like the impact moments, and the like that just wouldn't, like, if Darkseid didn't have like that blood stain dripping down his chest when he's like hauled onto the ship, that wouldn't have been as cool.
Zack made the comparisons, or other people associated with the movie might have made the comparisons before the movie coming out of like, this is Lord of the Rings type storytelling.
Yeah, it is.
And it honestly is. The history lesson honestly is.
It's awesome.
It's phenomenal. It's definitely one of the scenes, like, I know that I mentioned a couple of scenes that I would fast forward through. I will never fast forward to the history lesson.
And I like too that I mean, I know there's a couple sections where it like cuts back to Bruce and Diana, but for the most part, they really let it play out. Whereas in theatrical cut, I don't know if you remember, it was like chopped up into like maybe like minute-and-a-half segments as you cut back more to Bruce and Diana. So it like took you out of it. Obviously that was done to just edit out a bunch of stuff, but yeah, I really liked it.
Wait. Mother boxes?
Poor Affleck. Poor Affleck. It's not nearly as bad as...
Oh, something is definitely bleeding.
Don't even.
That poor bastard.
No.
But anyway, history lesson, phenomenal, and absolutely something that fans have been anticipating seeing, and it lives up to everything that they want to be able to say.
I am going to rewatch that a lot. What were your overall thoughts on part 2?
It's more effective to me as a chapter, as a standalone chapter, than 1 was. Because if you title this The Age of Heroes, and you include the history lesson in it to explore the first time that everybody had to get together, you know, and use their powers to stop the threat. And then you end it on that great chapter stuff. This is a great place for you to stop if you're getting into the movie and you want to see if you like it and you want to see if it's different from what you saw. You're now a little over an hour into it, and it gets to the place where they say, like, the Age of Heroes has to come back again. Boom, we stop, and then you can pause it and be like, awesome, I'm going to pick back up tomorrow, or whatever.
Yeah, if you're not
hooked
I know by that point, then it's...
Yeah.
Which I don't know how you could not be.
Yes, exactly. But I also do think that when we get to the end of this chapter, a lot of people are going to be like, oh my God, there's 4 more chapters of this? Like, you've already gotten a lot of movie, right? And there's so much more to come.
But we haven't even seen Flash yet.
And literally, the members of the League, you know, Bruce has cast a couple of lines out into the water, but they're not even close to getting together yet.
No.
And we are over an hour into our Justice
League.
And
so much has happened. And I love, too, just the pacing of these first 2 chapters. I think, like, you get the Amazons battling Steppenwolf, and then you get the history lesson. Like, those are 2 huge action pieces that you just got in under 90 minutes.
And they're incredibly important to the weight of the threat that's coming. You know, we have talked at length about how Zack has needed to, when he was building the DCEU back in 2016, that he needed to fit a lot of story into BVS particularly. BVS felt the weight of, like, we have to introduce a lot of elements. So this film is really doing a tremendous job of establishing the history and the mythology of these DC characters by going back to as far back as the old gods and ample time with the Atlanteans and the Amazonians and really establishing the importance of the mother boxes. This is a significant movie. When you think of it as like the 3rd part of a 5-film arc, he's filling in a lot of the stuff that he didn't get a chance to do in his previous films. And I think it's really, really important. And so it would allow, not only is he doing that, but when you think of it, he's laying the foundation for, back at the time, the other filmmakers to build off of. Patty would have built off of all the stuff that Zack put into Justice League. The different directors who took on Flash multiple times would have been able to build off of stuff we're going to get from him eventually. Ben would have been able to take his Batman franchise in a bunch of different directions. So I think it's interesting to look back on this as all of the different masters that this movie had to serve in the DCU in general. And now it's just getting to be its own thing and Zack being able to sort of breathe different life into it.
Well, I was going to say too, like, even if you just think about it in the context of like Man of Steel, BVS, Justice League, like think of like the sheer scale of what we've seen in parts 1 and 2 of Justice League versus like Man of Steel, which was like, you know, when you compare it to Marvel, like to get from, you know, Captain America, the First Avenger to Infinity War, like took a while to get there. And like, you know, each thing really evolved. And I think Zack just did that like times 10.
To Zack's credit, though, Man of Steel does open with an incredible badass sci-fi Kryptonian 20-minute sequence. So I think he was envisioning this. You know who we haven't mentioned barely once over the course of these 2 chapters? Superman.
And we haven't even seen Cyborg in action either. Like, there's so much still to come. But you're already so satisfied by the time you get here. It's great.
We will be back with Chapter 3, so make sure that you hit subscribe and turn on your notifications because Hannah and I will be back very shortly with our breakdown of Chapter 3 of Zack Snyder's Justice League, hitting the channel very soon.